Palantir is having its worst day in exactly 1 year. And the reason is just the same as it was 12 months ago. A big disappointment on some key earnings metrics. So let's dive in and see how retail traders have been trading this stock over that time period. I'm Blikre, host of Stocks in Translation. First off, this is a year-long chart. In white, we have the price performance of Palantir stock that I'm tracing along right now. And in the green, we have a line from Vanda Research. This tracks retail participation and retail buying. It is a 10-day moving average of said buying. And you can see there's kind of a cyclicality to it. And a lot of times when price goes up, you'll also see this retail buying move up. And that means that retail traders are supporting the price movements. But it's not always the case. Sometimes it's institutions that are supporting it. So this is a 6-month chart, and we're using a 5-day moving average, so it's a little bit more volatile. And here we have in white still, this is Palantir, and there's that same bull pattern that I was just highlighting. And in green, we have that 5-day moving average of the flows. Now, it's interesting, and a representative from Vanda Research pointed this out to me. Just take this price example. We had a little bit of a dip in price, then a recovery, and at the time, this was a recovery to brand new highs, and we didn't really see retail join the party until it broke to new highs. And actually before that, they were selling. So it was institutions that were supporting the price, and then retail was chasing the move. And that's kind of important. Sometimes people say retail is always chasing, but I found that's not always the case. So I want to dig a little bit deeper into the price action over the last 3 days, because as I said, we had a huge dip in Palantir, about 10% drop. This chart goes 3 days back, and I have Palantir here in white again. Here's that drop, and we can see that today there was a little bit of a recovery. Now, I have both large player and small player effective volume. And now these are different measurements than what we were tracking with Vanda just a minute ago. This happens to be the discovery of Pascal Willane, and he has something called effective volume, and he breaks down the price action into small player and large player. So the small player is a retail player. And what I want to show you here is in green, the institutions were selling. They were selling that dip in the morning, and retail was buying, and then retail sold. So retail is kind of driving the trade up and then down, maybe day trading. Meanwhile, institutions, once we had that second dip into the morning, or once we got to that high rather, they have been supporting price since. So it looks like the large players, the institutions, have stepped in a bit. So Palantir is one of those retail darlings, and we've seen a lot of retail excitement over it in fits and starts. It's a day trading favorite, and sometimes retail traders are the impetus for the moves that we see in the stock, and sometimes it's the institutions. Today, I think it's kind of a mix of both.
Bringing back in here Joe Mazzola, Charles Schwab, head of trading and derivatives strategist. Joe, so Jared there was running through all things Palantir. Yeah. I'm curious what you're seeing. Is that a name Charles Schwab customers are interested in, Joe?
Number 5 on the list of the top 5 buys. So what he said I thought was pretty poignant in that retail definitely bought the dip in April in that. We saw a lot of money move into Palantir, but I got to tell you, heading into earning, I was a little bit maybe skeptical of an additional bullish move, and here's the reason why. Options were pricing in about an $18, $19 move. That's a pretty big move for a 1 week straddle, or one week move on a $125 stock. So that was already kind of priced in that we were going to see a big move. We saw basically an $18 move, so they're about right there. I think one of the big differences I saw this year, as opposed to maybe what we've seen in the last few Palantir earnings cycles, was there wasn't a lot of bullish momentum on the call side, right? So you talk about retail, when do they get in, and maybe one of the ways that you could look at that is if you see a lot of that upside bullish momentum from call buying, expecting a big move to the upside. We didn't see that nearly as much. What we saw was a little bit more on the put skew, so a little bit more hedging. Maybe that's what they were getting at when they were kind of talking about this fact that institutions had maybe moved out a little bit. Maybe there was some hedging on the downside, but we weren't looking at that same upside bias that maybe we'd seen in the last couple of earnings reports.